when did hip hop radio shows get this much attention? I guess.
Never. People don't even think that's what it is. They're so confused. There's so much cognitive dissonance going on because like they're seeing the TV commercials and they're all thinking it's like some type of television show. And I'm like, no, it's radio.
It's time, Canada. There's a new home for Black music on the block. Hip-hop, R&B, Afro-pop, and more. Music made by us and played for us.
Gotta get it, I gotta get it, I gotta get it. Get it.
Yeah, so it's Black music, and it's Black. I'm sticking with Black music, and we decided to go with Black music because I don't think I'm interested in the erasure of Black people from the music that we create. I'm no longer feeling like calling jazz music. I'm gonna call it Black music. I feel like calling country music. I'm gonna call it Black music. Right. I'm gonna call hip hop. I'm gonna call it Black music. And so we're gonna play all that stuff. We're just really leaving a lot of room for exploration of all the different ways that, these little seeds of musical genres have bloomed and grown into more complex organisms. As the evolution of music continues, it's more and more difficult to place people in boxes. And I don't think creatives should be placed in boxes. I think they should be able to create and do. And now that you're able to kind of operate outside of the traditional studio label system, you can push your own sound boundaries a little bit and experiment and dabble in a little bit of this and a little bit of that and create your own unique sound. So I think we're moving past genre, really.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to go from the Toronto perspective here, right? Like we've had a very interesting relationship with radio stations, that are specialized in Black music. I remember maybe 20 years ago, it was WBLK that we would be listening to, and then Flow came along, right? And you
catch BLK very easy anymore.
Sorry? Yeah, it's almost like Flow bumped like BLK off the air somehow.
Yeah, it's a power struggle. It's a frequency power struggle. It's unfortunate that they were so close together on the dial. Yeah. Because if they were further apart, you could still get BLK and you could still be able to get Flow, but
which made me very bitter when Flow started like changing shoes and being like, yeah, maybe we're not so urban anymore, right? And I mean, look, like, and this is what I mean about our fraught history with hip hop stations. Like you of course you are Miss Ange. Your producer is JJ. You're both Flow alumni. Like, so you all came here. Talk to me about this history and what it's been like, the struggle of finding a place and a home for Black music in Toronto, in the Toronto radio scene.
Well, I came at a
I know there's G in between. Right?
I came at a very tense time. I showed up just as Mr. Jolly was selling Flow 93.5 to Bell. And so I showed up on the scene and I was like a surprise to everybody. Apparently they weren't giving any warning that I was coming. Right. So I showed up and people were like, who's this chick? Like, because I'm not from Toronto, and Toronto is a very sort of insular world where the announcers would bounce around from station to station to station, but very, very rarely would you get like new blood coming into the market. So I was that. And I came out here knowing that I had a bit of a guarantee of a job because I did know that the sale was going through, and typically with radio stations, you don't know what happens after a sale goes through. Format shifts, the whole on-air staff gets laid off, everyone gets laid off. And I wasn't about to move out here without some sort of guarantee from the purchasing company that I was going to have a job following the sale of Flow 93.5. So it was a massacre, and I was there for that massacre. And it was one of the saddest things I've ever experienced, was to see Flow 93.5 get dismantled like that. So that was a very special thing. It was run by a Black family. And so when you run a company through that lens, there's certain things you do and certain ways you operate and certain things you value. And those things went out the door with the sale. So as we switched over to Bell, it just turns into, how can we monetize this as best as we possibly can with our knowledge, which is not the knowledge of Black folks. It's not the knowledge of the community. It's the knowledge of white people who are now running it. And so They may or may not understand the music. They may or may not understand the culture that it represents, but they still want to make money. And then you go, how can we play stuff that will appeal to a broader range of people? So then you have music changes happening, and all those sorts of things. It's kind of like a domino effect. And it's not my first time at the rodeo where that's concerned, because when I started as a host, I was working at a urban, we don't really like to use that word anymore, urban station in Calgary, which is strange, right? Calgary of all places that would have, Black music focused radio station, 2 of them actually at the time. Strangely, it was a very bizarre time. And so when we got our new program director, at the time there was no CHR in the market. There was 2 urban stations, but no contemporary hit radio, typical pop radio.
Right.
So that's when the our slow change into like a pop station happened. And that's very heartbreaking for me, because I've always wanted to be a host on a radio station that played music that resonated with me and represented me. But it's a money game. You got to sell airtime, you got to run a business, and if you feel that this is the best way to run a business and this is the way that you can maximize your money, I don't know really what I can say to that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, when you talk about like, okay, the money game and how they start making changes to lure more money, there is this idea that, you want to lure advertisers. Well, advertisers want white audiences because there's a perception that white audiences will have more money to spend on their products, right? Like, I mean, I feel like that is a mentality that exists behind all of these corporate decisions that make you take all the music that was supposed to be hip hop and say, let's put some Vaseline over this and smooth it over a little bit, right? Is that, do you feel that?
Interesting. I've never heard that before. Let's put some Vaseline on.
Yeah, like it's just like,
oh, delicious. I like it. Yeah, I guess all those things could be said, right? I remember speaking to one of the sales rep. She was a master, amazing sales rep for Flow 93.5. She made lots of money. So I don't know if it's generally true that, a Black focused or urban radio station can't make money. I think it can absolutely make money, but I think that the dollar bills that are, when you get to the corporate, huge telecom, publicly traded company money, that's different.
Right.
Having a family run business money compared to the money you have to make to then pay out those dividends and make sure shareholders are happy and stock prices are going up. That's a different thought process that's happening. That's not necessarily a thought process of like, we want to serve the community as best we can. We need to make as much money as we can. How can we make as much money as we can? We don't want to alienate anybody. We want to play music that's across the board, is pleasing to all folks. So we can get those dollar bills. So as radio has gone from these smaller family-run operations to these becoming a part of huge conglomerates, you lose that autonomy to serve the communities that you would like to, or serve more niche listening audiences than you would like to. And that's another very sad thing, is how radio's evolved over the past 2 decades, is that it's gone from being these kind of fun places to work to being real big business. And big business doesn't care about heart and soul, really.
Right.
I can't, capitalism doesn't care.
Yeah. Well,
about how I feel.
but here's the thing, though. Like, I mean, just capitalism is one thing, but you're in the CBC building, right? You've been at CBC for a while. Like,
coming on 5 years.
It's about 5 years now, right? So, and of course, I mean, you must have witnessed a shift in the last year, because I remember, like talking to a radio show and be like, hey, how come there's not enough hip hop on this? Like, like you're broadcasting out of Toronto, you're broadcasting out of the city where there's so much of a hip hop culture. They're like, yeah, but like in the morning, our Sudbury audiences might feel a type of way about hearing hip hop in the morning, is the response I got. And so, I mean, for you? Like,
it's an adjustment for sure, just because it's national.
Right.
So you're programming for 53 frequencies, from a small little town to the biggest so like that's an even bigger challenge as a programmer and as an announcer, because you can't be like, oh, what a nice day it is today. That conversation starter's out the door, because the weather in Vancouver is different than the weather in Iqaluit. So,
Right.
you know, it's just a different lens through which you have to program, different lens through which you have to relate to the audience. But you know, I'm not adverse to challenges, and I love radio. I'm like a radio person through and through. I believe in the power of it.
Yeah.
So
No,
I grow and evolve to be the best possible host and kind of like companion, because that's what radio really is the companionship in your life.
but I mean, like, in terms of like just getting like the CBC to embrace such a show that is focused on, you know, like, because it's like they were always seem to like, you know, like when you talk about that, like,
I never thought it would happen. I showed up here. I didn't think it was ever going to happen. I didn't know that this was going to happen, but I think I've been working towards this my whole life. I think what really needed to happen is it had to be a slow evolution, because there was even a big change, like shocking, cataclysmic event that happened even when Radio 2 switched from being all classical and brought in like contemporary music, or AAA, adult alternative. So that was a huge, you know, adjustment for the audiences. And CBC music is pretty all over the place as it is, especially on the weekend. Like the range of sounds that you can hear are, you know, opera, choral music, classical music, jazz music, blues music, AAA, you know, but not anything that's focused on these genres or the intersectionality of these genres, or Black music. So I think it was a pretty glaring hole. And I think with everything that's been going on in society, it becomes even more prevalent. You know, I don't think this corporation had to, you know, really look at themselves and reflect at themselves as the public broadcaster and how it represents all Canadians, and hasn't had to really reckon with anti-Black racism, not only in the world, but within the walls of this building as well, and how things are reported. And, you know, that takes a lot of education, a lot of patience, a lot of willing to listen, and a lot of growing pains. And it's just the beginning of the journey, I would say, where that's concerned. But I'd have to say that this is probably a better environment for a Black person, because the private radio world is vicious, and I've been abused. It's a very violent place to work. As a Black woman, specifically, you know, I challenge you to find anybody that survived as long as I have.
Yeah, no.
20 years. I've been on air for 20 years as a Black woman. Go find another one. That's really fucking hard.